Hi, welcome to the Conservative Continuum. I am your host, Mick Meow. Please follow me on patreon.com/Mick Meow. You can also follow the Conservative Continuum on Rumble and Facebook. Today we have a perfect show. We are going to be talking with Claire Kennedy and Barbara Scarpa, and they are two women who not only knew how to build up House District precincts locally, but they've also been involved with building databases and campaign management for several different campaigns. We're going to be talking to them today about growing the grassroots and getting you all information and education. So grab your kitty treats, get that milk, and let's get ready to engage. Hello, welcome to the Conservative Continuum. I'm Mick Meow. Today, as I promised, we are going to be speaking to two incredible experts who will give us lots of information that we need. This is Barbara and Claire. Ladies, I am so gracious and grateful that you are with us today. We are talking about the grassroots. We are talking about building up information for people to get more empowerment, engagement, involvement. And we're also going to dive into a little bit of how the voters can get more information about candidates and what we need to know in Oklahoma. So we just finished primaries on June the 28th, and several seats will have a runoff August the 23rd. Federal and state will have Senate, House, Commissioner, Superintendent, lots of seats that are coming up for runoff, and then the general election will be November 8th. So put those dates on your calendar. So first of all, what do you say to voters who are out there and maybe decide that they're not going to opt in to vote for the runoff or the general election because they say, well, my candidate didn't run, my original candidate didn't win, or they aren't, convinced that they like the candidates, or this is what I hear, well, it's a red state anyway, why do I need to vote? What do you say to those people?
We're in a fight, literally in a fight to keep the state red. We cannot be complacent anymore. I moved here from California because frankly, we got complacent there and we lost it. We lost the state and it's really ugly there now. I came here, I went to my first precinct meeting to find that my daughter and I were the only people there representing our precinct. So we automatically were told, okay, you're chairman, you're vice chairman, but we weren't given the tools that we needed to go ahead. Everyone needs to become active. We need boots on the ground. We need people going door to door. And quite frankly, I think more than anything that people are feeling discouraged, they're feeling not heard, that their vote doesn't count. We need to let them know it does and that every vote counts. We have too many instances where if we just had a few more votes, we wouldn't even have had certain primaries. And then that gave the opposition enough knowledge to know how to come back in a runoff and beat it. So now, again, we're going to be going into runoffs.
Yes.
And they now know, the percentages out there. So the opposition knows what they need to do to beat our more conservative candidates. So now we need to fight harder than ever.
Yes, absolutely. And my family is in California too, and I can't tell you how worried I am for them. Their rent is increasing exponentially. They are being taxed to the brink of not being able to save. Everywhere they got locked down. They had to work from home. If they couldn't work from home, I actually, my brother-in-law lost his job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just was unreal, and a lot of that was because they were a blue Democratic
Yes.
state.
And they'd lost a lot of their rights.
Well, and they're opening up the prisons. They're letting the criminals out early. You've got the homeless is rampant everywhere. They're
Drug addicts.
and they're defecating on the street. I mean,
Yeah. San Francisco, they don't even go to San Francisco anymore
No.
because they realize how dangerous it is
Yes.
to be there. And I was surprised. I hear that they're trying to recall,
Gascon?
yes, yes.
Mhm.
In LA, right?
Yes.
In LA County.
Mhm.
Right.
And they tried to recall Gavin Newsom,
Yeah.
and I'm surprised, but I think they're going to try and recall him again.
I think the difference is Gavin Newsom was had someone running against him, and would it be Gavin Newsom or this other candidate? And the other candidate wasn't strong. Whereas the Gascon situation is should he be recalled or not recalled? And I think the polls are reading that he should be recalled, and then they'll go from there. But Barbara has a personal story from California and her family that is really worth sharing.
Well, let's hear it. Please
Okay.
tell us.
Okay, well, I have a vaccine injured grandson. And we've, had to homeschool him and we had to bring him back. We were very lucky. My daughter is an awesome researcher, and she wouldn't, when he was given the autism diagnosis at 2, she said, oh no, we're not doing that. And so she basically did a lot of research, and we even have a hyperbaric chamber in her home and brought him. He's going to be 9 now, and you would never know that he had that. I mean, he literally, no one was home. Right before then, he was developing fine, and yes, he did have other medical issues he was born with, but nothing that should have caused that. Well, he can't have another vaccine. He got a medical exemption, but then they passed a law that said, basically, they said, oh, we're not nullifying medical exemptions. It just has to be given by a doctor that hasn't been under investigation. There aren't any doctors in California that aren't under investigation if they give a medical exemption. The majority of the doctors, even his autism specialist, said he can't have another one, but I can't give you an exemption or I will not be able to practice anymore, because they go after the doctors.
Oh my.
So we were already knew we were skating, kind of close there. Then they passed a law that said if there was a quote-unquote epidemic, which they clarified as like 3 or more measles, would be an epidemic, not a doctor but a social worker could come into your home and take your child and vaccinate them. So that's when my daughter started researching all the states, and believe it or not, Oklahoma right now is the #1 state for individual, parental, and health rights, okay, in all the states. But they're fighting hard, the other side is.
And the
to get rid of
AMA is
that.
okay with this? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the American Medical Association is not protecting those physicians. They've gone along with it.
They haven't protected I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Vaxxed.
I have not.
Well, that's a whole nother slippery slope, and once you start diving into all of this and big pharma and everything else, you learn things that you never thought you believed. I mean, I grew up, you vaccinate your children, you do everything.
Right.
Unfortunately, everybody's body, however, is different.
Absolutely.
And some things don't work, and there's this gene called the MTHFR gene mutation that 30 to 40% of the population, believe it or not, has. And with that, you do not detoxify.
So you basically had to move your 3 generations.
Yeah.
of your
So
family.
basically, my daughter told me we were moving, and I said, but I was going to work for another year, and she said, no, Mom, you're not. You're coming. I'm not.
Wow.
So her 3 boys, her husband, her in-laws, and her husband's sister, their 2 girls and husband. We all moved
Wow.
in 2020.
That is amazing. What a heartfelt story. That is just incredible. I do want to touch on, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here, right? That's good for us.
We're blessed to have her.
We're going to take a look and talk about what recommendations do you have for voters to get information on candidates, because I hear that a lot. People want to know where they can get information, accurate information. Okay, well, the kitty tells us that we need to get him some kitty treats first, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about that information. Don't go away.
My city get crazy like Babylon. I can't be the girl that don't capitalize. I just study the hey. Sheesh. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Conservative Continuum. I'm Mick Meow. Today we're talking with Barbara and Claire, and we are talking about growing the grassroots. So we were talking just about the things that we've been hearing out there post the primaries as we're heading into runoffs and the general election. And one of the things that I still hear from people is, where do I get information? How do I know who these candidates are, and where can I get that information from? So where do we go to get information? Where do you recommend people go to get accurate information?
I have several resources, and these are government and true resources rather than just groups and entities. A lot of these wonderful, powerful groups in Oklahoma have emails that I highly recommend you get on, OKHPR, OK2A, OCPAC, and some of those. They're wonderful to get their messages. But instead of telling you who to vote for, I would rather see you do research, because that makes you a much more powerful voter. And the problem here is that we've had so many citizens step up to come in to participate in government, to file to be a candidate, that have no record other than they worked on a farm or they've developed 2 or 3 businesses or something like that, and we don't know about them. So one of the first things I recommend is the guardian.ok.gov, and I think they're going to run that link on the bottom.
We are going to scroll those links so that you'll see it on the TV. So write those down. Those will continually scroll for you.
Right. But you can go on, it's the Oklahoma Ethics Commission, and you go on and you'll see here that this candidate has this much money. And where did that candidate get it? Well, here are, this person gave 100, this person gave 500. All through here on the cover sheet it says this person received money from PACs. You can go through and find out over here in the following pages what PAC that was. Then you can go to the Oklahoma Secretary of State, and that is sos.ok.gov. In there you can scroll down to a business search, and click on there, and you can look up Fly By Night Incorporated and see who owns it, who filed all the information, where they're from. Yes, are they from Delaware? Are they from Bulgaria? Where are they from? And you get a real good impression of what's going on. One of the other most valuable sites is the Oklahoma Supreme Court Network. And that's www.ocsn.net. And in there you go through and you click on cases, and you put in a name. Currently, this is 14-page report, condensed report over 10 years of one candidate who is on the docket right now. Those kinds of things are very informing, and these are factually based. You're looking at the facts. These are they're court notes, so that you can see how the case progressed, what's going on, who's having problems with the court, who isn't, that kind of thing, and it gives you a real good insight into the candidate. And I love all of these. I know there are some others that you like too.
Yes, the iVoterGuide.com, that gives you good information. Also, the Oklahoma House, it's okhouse.gov and oksenate.gov. If I said them wrong, I'll make sure they're right on the digital TV. But those give you good information because you can actually track the person, if they're an incumbent, the legislation that they've proposed, and you can also go through and get emails which will tell you a press release. This senator says, I think this about this bill, or J.J. Humphreys, when they were talking about the SAVE Act that the Democrats had proposed for abandoning and revising red flag laws and gun control. But I agree with you. Things like the OK2A and the Oklahoma Health and Parental Rights. And we'll scroll those as well because those are really good organizations to get involved with. One of the things that I like too is going out and speaking to that candidate. Personal, eye to eye. I want to see the whites of their eyes, and I want to know exactly what they're saying to me and how they're answering.
So what kind of questions would you ask of a candidate?
Well, actually, what I did is I went to a candidate and I asked them, what do you say in your platform about pro-life? You know, how do you feel? Where in your mind is a baby? When does a baby become a baby? You know, in your mind. CRT. How do you feel that we need to protect our children in schools? There are, drag queen hours, story hours that were being done at OSU. What do you think about them, and what legislation would you propose, to stop that kind of situation from happening?
Sexualizing children, right.
Yes.
Yes. What about our kindergartners being asked what pronoun they want to be called by and being told that their genitals don't determine their sex?
Exactly.
I mean, talk about confusing them.
It's a confusing age anyway. They're busy learning, and to additionally confuse the issue. I mean, I remember when I was going through that age, I was wearing tomboy clothes.
Yeah.
According to the woke community today, I should be,
My daughter was a total tomboy. She had 2 older brothers, and from first grade on, she wouldn't wear a dress. It was jeans and t-shirts.
Yes.
I was so sad. I was so ready. I mean, she says, Mom, you had me in those foo-foo dresses before that. But and she even says now, she's going to be 40 here soon. Sorry, sweetie. And she says, they would have told me I was a boy.
That's it.
Yeah. And then she would have had some sort of operation and been in therapy probably 24/7
I mean,
after it.
And she has 3 beautiful boys and is, a wonderful mom, and and is a therapist, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
We're going to move on to our next topic. I want to talk about the American First candidates. We had many candidates, as we kind of alluded to the fact that we had ordinary citizens. First time running for office. They weren't career politicians in the primaries, both state and federal. The message that I heard was that times they are a-changin'. In Oklahoma and really across the United States, there was a vast influx of people who identified themselves as freedom fighters, liberty moms and dads, American First. I want to talk about that because, in my opinion, that is sending a signal to the people who are in power at this time,
Yes.
who are letting them know that you either see us, hear us, and represent us. And if we can, we're going to hold you accountable.
Yes.
That it's a simple choice. You either use your platform to stand up, speak out, and defend your constituency, or move aside.
Oh.
Kitty, more time for Kitty. When we come back, we're going to talk about those American First candidates. Be right back.
My city get crazy like Babylon.
The kitty is settled. Welcome back to the Conservative Continuum. We are speaking with Barbara and Claire, and we are talking about the grassroots and the building up engagement and empowerment. We were talking about all of those people who ran in the primary. There seemed to be a lot of them this year across the nation who were calling themselves freedom fighters and liberty moms and dads. So what are your thoughts on that? What is your input about that? Because I really see that as a wake-up call to those who are already in office.
Well, we have to remember, this is a republic.
Yes.
And that our founding fathers set up a government which requires personal participation, citizen participation. That's a demand. This is not a right. It's not a given. It's not something that you're born with. It is earned by the governed. In the second sentence of the second paragraph of the Constitution is the government derives its power from the consent of the governed. And that's our vote.
Yes.
So that means not only do we have to vote, but we have to educate ourselves and inform ourselves. But first of all, let's vote. Just simply because we're a red state, your vote doesn't count, that is so wrong. Barbara and I can sit here and just recite one race after another where it's decided by very small votes.
Yes.
The other is, it's really kind of exciting to get involved.
Yes.
Because particularly with your house, because the House seat is so small and such a small group that it's easy for you to call your House member up and say, hey, I'd like to vote for you, but I want to know what you stand for. So what you said about talking to call them up on the phone. If they don't have a number, find out what the number is and email, can I talk to you? Because they should be willing, and the state senate too. And many county offices are the same way, but participate. It's important to educate and participate, and it's a right you earn. Yes, the Constitution gave it to us, but it is not one that is just a right, like pursuit of happiness. It's not anything like that.
You can make a difference if you get enough people calling in that you flood that
Oh, yeah.
that the voicemail. I mean, we've done it to where we have made the voicemail was full. Okay.
Yes.
Or you get a group together, say there's a bill that you either wanted to get out of committee, or you're trying to convince certain senators or representatives to vote for them. If you go down there, you can meet them right in their office. And let me tell you, you take one of their small offices and you get 10, 15, 20 people in that office, and all of a sudden they were going no, and all of a sudden they're going, oh. It does, and I have seen it happen over and over again. That's one thing that OKHPR with Liza Greavy, they do very, very well. We need to do that more with bigger groups and more people. We need to get boots on the ground. We need to
That's
go
it.
door to door.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a door and they've said, nobody's ever come here before.
Mm.
You know, people aren't aware. You know, life sometimes is hard for people. They have a lot of other worries and cares, you know. Young mothers, you know, are busy with their little ones. They have their own issues and problems and everything. And so going and talking to them and letting them be heard
Yes.
is so important. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, I can make a difference. Then they'll make that extra effort to get out. But everyone's so involved in their
Yes.
own lives. And I can't blame them. I got too complacent in California, and look where it's at, you know.
Yes.
And even though I was born into a family that was very, very active, we flew to San Francisco to walk for a candidate when I was a teenager. But, you know, I got involved with my family, and, you know, certain problems and issues came up, and I didn't keep fighting like I should have. But we're in a war right now, and we cannot afford to lose. Bottom line.
Let me ask you this. The candidates,
Yes.
a lot of the grassroots candidates that are in the runoffs, and then they're going to have to face that general election.
Right.
Some of the biggest barriers that I've seen is that, like you were talking about, that boots on the ground, that passion of conviction.
Yes.
But what I saw was a lack of name recognition,
Exactly.
or they had a lack of funding, or
Yes.
there were some races, like we've talked about, that there were so many candidates
Right.
that it split the vote.
Right.
So, as a voter and with somebody who has done a lot of canvassing and campaigning, with that kind of knowledge, what would you recommend to the candidates to be able to garner more support and gather more votes? Because it's so important, especially in some of these runoff races.
Well, Barbara and I are just so simpatico about this because we've seen it. Boots on the ground, knocking the doors.
Yes.
We've seen it happen over and over and over again. That's what does it. When you get volunteers, it's hard for a lot of these new
Yes.
candidates because they aren't known. Nobody
Right.
knows them, and especially if they're running against someone who is a professional politician.
Right.
Yeah.
One other thing that the voter has to be very cognizant about, you probably have this on there, but it's important, is that we conservatives don't think in terms of some devious underground things going on.
Right.
And believe it or not, the Democrats will be supporting a weaker conservative candidate so that their Democratic
Yes.
candidate will have an easier time,
Yes.
Yes.
or one that's terribly flawed.
Yes.
Right.
And we have to be very cognizant of that. So when we're getting ready to vote in this runoff election, vote for the candidate who can win in the general. That's really should be your primary concern.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry your candidate lost. I know there's a feeling like, well, I'm going to boycott. I'm mad. But I want you to sit back and consider your valuable vote to go for that candidate who can really beat the blue candidate in the fall.
Uh-oh. Kitty? Okay. All right. We'll take another break and we'll get you some kitty treats. But you better just settle down. All right, we're going to be back in a minute. Don't go away.
My city get crazy like Babylon. I can't be the gutter, don't cap it
Welcome back to the Conservative Continuum. I'm Mick Meow. The kitty is settled now. Maybe he'll give us a little bit more time. We were talking about what you would recommend to the candidates. Now, I saw candidates who did like weekly meetings at like a coffee shop. I saw candidates who went across the state. I saw candidates who put articles in the Sentinel newspaper. But what do you think? What input would you give them, especially with your vast experience?
Well, I think they need to get out and talk to as many people as possible, but they also need to lay out what they stand for and their principles. There's certain points that everyone wants to know about. They need to stop the negativity toward the person they're running against and giving that person name recognition. Instead, talk about what they believe in and what they want to accomplish. That's what we want to know, is what are you going to do once you get into office?
Yes. And I so agree with that. I also think that if they utilized something like Clay Clark, his Thrive Time show, or even this show where we do like a weekly out call and say shout out to and list some of the things that they have as their philosophy and their platform, just so people would know. Something to kind of tuck back in the brain. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about the precinct, growing the precinct. So I started volunteering for the Republican GOP this year, and I went to my first county meeting and I went to my first precinct meeting, and the thing that got me was that we didn't have a whole lot of people there, and not a whole lot of people knew about it. So we talked about getting involved with those grassroots conservative organizations like Oklahoma for Health and Parental Rights, and the Oklahoma OK2A for the Second Amendment. But also your county and your precinct can really be a way that that person can get their voice out, that they can affect change, and that they can have legislation. So what I want to kind of touch base on is how do we get and raise that level of awareness? How do we get more of the constituency involved in those local counties and precincts?
It's, well, I'm maybe not really understanding your question. Are you talking about from the voter point of view or from the candidate point of view?
From the just the general citizen point of view, going to your county meetings, getting involved in your local county, your local precinct. The people who want to be involved.
Right, that's all a part of being involved in your government. The consent of the government, the citizen participating in the government. And don't think that you're not going to be listened to, or that nobody's going to call on you, or that especially don't think you're not going to learn anything. You're going to learn something. Yes. Even if it's just going to a simple school board meeting. That's a great place to start.
Yes.
And a city council meeting.
Yes.
Anything like that. Where you can sit there and maybe you don't know what all's going on, so after the meeting is over you can go up to the councilman and say, I'm not sure I understood that point 2 you were talking about. Now what happens with that? Or for example, like going to your House representative and saying, I see this bill 1432, what does not going to do that mean? How is that going to affect my life? And I'm worried about this, or I'm worried about that kind of thing. But these groups, these government groups that we have, and particularly in the precinct.
Yes.
Barbara and I are both precinct chairs, which we just love being.
I am too.
And you walk your precinct. And so many people come to us and say, how do you populate the offices? You walk the precinct. Already, I have found 5 gyms, and they become block chairmen. They become, so when we got ready to get out the vote, I had them out working certain sections of the precinct. I was working certain sections. Another neighborhood chairman, and I have a really big, not area-wise, but population-wise,
Mm.
I have a really big precinct. And they help tremendously. One little tiny tip, and that is whenever you have a volunteer helping you out, before you do anything, thank them when they come and thank them sincerely when they leave. Often that's better than paying them.
Mm.
That smile on your face and just
Appreciation.
yes, and recognition. I
Yes.
couldn't have done this without you. Thank you so much for your help. It means so much to me and the conservative causes. Whenever you see them, that consider this payment
Yes.
and make it genuine.
And engaging them, making
Oh, yes.
them a block captain.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about from the county perspective and the GOP in general, like the websites. One of the things that I would love to see is that those websites become more streamlined. Events for not just candidates, but events for things that those conservative groups are doing. Ways that people can be involved, track, it links to those organizations, ways to track legislation, maybe calls to action. How can we do more from that way, so those people who can't get out but they're looking on their computer to engage them?
I still think, and I know this is a little bit off of what you're saying,
Sure.
but if
That's
you're
okay.
going, if we can get people just started going door to door, if we can get people feeling empowered. So many people think that they can't make a difference anymore. They're so discouraged seeing how things have gone. You have to give the power back to the people. And in order, and so that is face to face, door to door. It's grassroots, it's boots on the ground. Start it with baby steps with them. Create that camaraderie with them when they're your neighbors, okay? We've lost the feeling of neighbors.
Neighborhood.
Yes. That is so true. I can't tell you how many people say, I don't know. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I see them,
Yeah.
but that's it. That's all I know.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no. Again? All right.
It's
yes.
a liberal cat.
It probably is. He needs a lot of attention. We'll be back in a minute. We're going to take care of that kitty. The kitty is settled in for a good little nap right now. So we're back with the conservative continuum. We were talking about engaging the grassroots. One of the things I want to kind of touch on is the uses of databases and those tools that you use in order to help build up the precinct using those databases.
So one of the things we've been doing in Oklahoma County is we have a program called Voter Gravity, and we've been trying to get people in to train them from the different precincts and everything. And it's a tool that has a database in it. It's very powerful as far as making walk lists and gathering information. And you have to understand that information is what we need in order to succeed. Connect.
Yeah.
And the very, very basics that we're trying to start out that we need in order to get the information out and get everyone engaged is being able to email people and text them. Okay?
Yes.
I mean, I know people get overwhelmed with that stuff too, but how do we let the people know that a bill is there and it's stuck in committee? How do we let them know about that if we can't contact them?
Yes.
Okay, so what we've been starting with this program is getting the precinct workers out, going door to door and you know, you don't start out asking for that information. You say, would you like to know when there's special elections? Because a lot of them, you'll find they didn't even know there was one.
Yeah, right.
Okay, would you like to know when there's a bill that's really important that we're having trouble getting even on the floor? Would you like to know that there are phone calls and emails that you can send to your representatives, and it will make a difference? Because I can tell you a ton of stories about how it made a difference.
Yes.
But without that information, we can't do that. So the beginning of the whole thing is engaging, okay?
Yes.
Engaging the people, making them feel empowered, making them feel I am important and I can make a difference, and this is my country, and I'm taking it back.
That's right.
Yeah.
How can we get voter gravity? Because I so agree that one of the things is being able to know that you're in control and you're driving the train.
Right.
So how can we get people voter gravity? How can we get them trained? Or if you join a precinct, is that something that you come and do? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you can call the Oklahoma
Right.
County GOP, and I don't happen to have the number, but I think you all can run
I'll
that.
put the website
Yeah.
on there.
And you can contact them. They will put us in touch, and then you hear from us. Barbara and
And
I
we
are the
train.
trainers. Barbara and I developed training specifically for this program.
Yes.
Fortunately, Barbara has an extensive database background, and not only that, not only can she talk databases, but she's taught it. And so she's
Is that a
developed
word?
it. Yeah, it is now.
Databases.
Yeah.
And I'll make it a verb in a minute, you know. And so we're very lucky to have Barbara with us because we've created a book that you get to take home with you, a training book, and so that whenever you have a question or a problem, or it's step by step,
Yes.
and it's like Barbara says, it is a magnificent tool. I particularly love it because I'm directionally challenged, and I live in a neighborhood with a street and a place and a terrace, and they're all the same number, or a court, you know, and so I'm always wondering, is this the court or the terrace, you know, where am I, you know, and it has a little map that follows me
I
around.
love that.
And you can see whether that you've hit that house or not, because there's different color codings for things. So for example, if that person was
Easy.
out grocery shopping, you can see, oh, I need to go back to that one. If you've already gotten your objectives as far as getting the information and talking to them about something, you know, you can see it's a green dot. Oh, well, that one's done.
Yeah.
And you can see it on the map so that you can then figure out how you're going to walk it to get back and not zigzag so much.
Yeah.
So I love that idea, and it's on your phone.
Yes.
And you just go down and go, okay, here, and it tells you the name of the person, and you can go door to door to door. Now you're out and you're canvassing and you're knocking on doors. Tell us a little bit about canvassing. Give us some tips of the trade for canvassing.
Take either your kid or your
Oh, yeah.
grandkid with you. I tell ya, it opens more doors. I mean, I don't know about you, but unfortunately in California, you just didn't open your door.
Yeah.
Okay? But you see this cute little kid coming up and you just can't resist.
Yeah.
And it immediately creates a warmth. And then the first thing you always say is, I'm a volunteer, and I live down right on this block over here. I'm your neighbor, you know, because I'm not trying to sell something. I'm trying to get them together to help us fight the fight,
Right.
basically.
To connect.
And we have to connect. We have to.
You know, that is so important. I love that. I'm not selling anything. I'm here to connect with you.
Right.
I'm here because we're all in the fight together.
Yes.
I love that.
Exactly. The Democrats have done an incredible
Yes.
job of isolating and demoralizing and deplorabilizing
Yes.
us, that often so many of these people are stuck in the house going, I must be the only one who thinks this way. And all of us, that's one of the things that Barbara and I've experienced when you knock on doors is that it takes you a long time to get to the next door because they're so, oh wow, you're my neighbor and you think the same way. You don't like CRT either.
Right.
And we can talk about it. All of a sudden the connection is just really vital, and you begin to walk through the neighborhood, all of a sudden you begin to find out, oh, you have a dog too. Then you can have gatherings, you can have, there in Oklahoma City there are lots of wonderful places, parks, where you can go and have gatherings. I think you have to call the city parks and reserve some of them. Lake Hefner, Will Rogers, they're just all over the city. They're great.
But it starts with that one-on-one.
Right.
And then once you've got that, you start connecting all the pieces and it grows.
Did he wake up? Oh, Kitty. The kitty is awake, and apparently he's telling us it's time that we need to shuffle off to Kitty Land. So I want to say thank you, ladies. Wonderful information. I think it's fabulous. Everything that you've provided for us. I hope you all feel engaged.
And go vote.
Yes.
Go vote.
Yes.
Get out the vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, it's time for the caterwaul. Here we go. I have always been a woman that believed in 3 things. 1, gather as much information as you possibly can about the subjects you are involved with. 2, knowledge and education is power. And 3, go big or go home. In other words, be engaged and involved as much as you possibly can, or don't do it at all. So this year being an election year, I went whole hog. I joined conservative groups. I became a volunteer. I went to rallies. I canvassed, I campaigned, and I went full speed ahead, warp 9. Now, what did I learn? Well, first of all, I learned that Oklahomans are friendly and too nice to really say anything overtly mean, except you may get a lot of bless your heart. And people will smile at you and wave while they're driving down the road, even though they have no idea of who you are. I also learned that Oklahomans are resilient, and they will grow stronger with any obstacle that is thrown in their way. We take God, freedom, liberty, family, and politics seriously now. But make no mistake about it, Oklahoma is the heartland. We are middle class America, and we are where the green grass grows because we have good grassroots. But like anything, we have gaps in our system, and we always have room for improvement, if you will. The questions that I hear over and over again are these. Where do I get information about the candidates? How do I know that that candidate is really who they tell me they are? How do I get involved? How do I make a difference? How do I let my voice be heard? And yes, why bother to vote? We're a red state. Well, today we are going to answer those questions, hopefully, and we're going to give you information as much as we possibly can and much, much more. So, sit back, relax, and stay with me as we go together through the continuum. Thank you for curling up with us today. I hope that you got all the information about how to grow the grassroots and your local precincts from Claire and Barbara. I want to thank them for coming on. I want you to follow me at patreon.com/McMeow. You can also follow the Conservative Continuum on Rumble and Facebook, and McMeow is on Truth, Social, Gab, and Getter. Don't forget to join us next week when we're going to be talking about election integrity and election reform. Have a wonderful day. Be blessed always, my friends.